Latif. You saw there was a delay of salaries for about 2-3 days, in April.
Yep. Yes.
Because, some characters thought that I was joking. I told them, listen, we are going to live within our means. Even if we have to delay for salaries for 2-3 days, we will. So that people begin to internalize that we cannot continue borrowing. And let me tell you, I have had many people say, oh, you can't tax there is no country that can tax itself into prosperity. That's correct. Yeah? But you cannot accumulate debt into bankruptcy as an option. It cannot be an option, right? And there is a question I want to ask my fellow countrymen and women. Are we overtaxed? That is the question that we need to ask. And I want to answer that question. Yeah. Are Kenyans overtaxed? Let me give you the statistics. OECD countries, OECD countries, the tax as a percentage of GDP, the average is 34% of GDP. 34%. You have from Turkey, which is 22% of GDP, to France, which is 45% of GDP. Okay? Let's leave the OECD. Let us come to our continent. Our peers, South Africa, Tunisia, Morocco. They are between 23 and 28% of GDP. Tax as a percentage of GDP. Where is Kenya? Kenya is at 14%. Kenya is at 14%, meaning we are paying half in terms of tax what our peers in our continent are paying. And you see, society is reflected by the quality of public goods, roads, hospitals, schools, water. That is what a society is measured. If you will find that if you don't have working schools, if you don't have no running water, if you don't have good roads, you cannot, what kind of society are you? So the big question, and I want to tell my countrymen and women, please, we are not overtaxing ourselves. In fact, if we were to match our peers, my intention is to take this slowly, the way Mwai Kibaki did. When Mwai Kibaki came into office, we were collecting about 220 billion. By the time he was leaving in 10 years, we were collecting almost 1 trillion. He had moved it 4 times, right? Yep. Now we are at 14. If you look at the budget this year, I want to move it from 14 to 16% of GDP. By God's grace, maybe next year, 18, maybe like that, because we have to be realistic, If we do not pay taxes, we cannot be like the countries we want to be. We want to be in their shoes. We will be going backwards. So the real cardinal, and I want to tell my good friends, it's good to have information. Because I hear many people are saying, we are being overtaxed. The real issue is that our tax as a percentage of GDP, if we manage to get this finance bill through, we will move from 14 to 16. We will still be way below what our peers are.
I want to come back onto the issue of debt because, it's also influencing how much you want to spend in the next financial year and raising revenue to repay this debt. 1.2 trillion shillings, if I'm not wrong, is our debt bill in the next financial year. And if you just look at how much we are paying in terms of debt, and then you look back at that close to 9 trillion shillings that has been borrowed in the last 10, 15 years, questions are, where has that money gone? And so I want to ask you, Mr. President, do you feel that the money that has been borrowed has actually gone to be value for Kenyans?
I do not want to point fingers at no administration. I do not want to say what happened in the last administration. I have said enough of it. I just want to speak to the present and to the future. And I want to tell my countrymen and women that I want to be held to account. I am ready. That is why I believe in accountability. For the first